This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, the Loss Junkie.
Hey, good Monday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 10th of June. And looking all over the place, boy, it was a rough drive in here today, looking at different weather locations on the app, seeing that a large part of the state is dealing with west-northwest winds anywhere from 15 to 25 miles an hour. I was just thinking on the way in what that's, it feels like this year the weather is like the new son-in-law to the family business. Just can't get anything quite right. But hopefully we'll keep some sunshine for a while, although the forecast does show some rain coming up, and kind of like May, a little bit here, a little bit there. No stretch of dry days necessarily. Well, we'll see who's on the program today. Hopefully Tom Heinold, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, will be joining us. We'll see. Brenda Matherly will be along with Illinois Farm Bureau later in the program. Alan Motu with QT Weather, talking about what's to come for June, and it is not a good-looking forecast by any means. And also on the program, Dale Dirkholz, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor. Tomorrow there's USDA Crop Production Report, and one of the things for the reports they throw in, projections for corn and soybeans. Will that be adjusted? It's rare to adjust it in June, but can you still go with 176 bushels for corn? And if not, how much is the adjustment? We'll get into all those things later in the program. First, though, we'll have a message from this week's Farm Week Crop Watcher. This week's Farm Week Crop Watcher in southeast Livingston County is Mark Kerber, planting beans on the 10th of June. So does that mean you're done with corn?
Yes. This south part of the county got the corn wrapped up pretty much last weekend, over the weekend. Now everybody's rattling in the beans.
Is this unprecedented for you, or certainly a year to remember and forget at the same time?
Yeah, I've got my planting dates back to 1966, so this is pretty late from all those years. One time we finished beans on about July 1st.
Wow. How's it going in? I mean, you don't want to plant this late, but you don't have much of a choice at this point.
That's right, and it's finally getting fit. Everybody pretty much kind of started back into the corn when the conditions weren't perfect, but the beans are going on really good.
How much rain did you get during May? I assume it just brought everything to a halt for the almost, if not the whole month.
We never got a flood, but we got a lot of 8/10, 5/10, 7/10, and it all added up. But we did get a flood after the April 25th planting. What
about weed management and all those things? Did you have a chance to do any kind of field work in May?
No, we didn't get much done in May. Oh, not the whole month.
So planting this late, what are you trying to figure? Certainly not ideal corn conditions, but do you have anything in mind so far at a year like this? Just what to expect yield-wise, or what kind of crop you'd be hoping for?
Well, I talked to my local agronomist, and naturally we're going to take a yield reduction. But most of this corn got in before our federal crop date of June 5th, and most of the beans are going to get in before the date of June 20th. So at least we got that done. So we'll see how it works out.
All right. Well, I'll let you keep focused on what you're doing, but thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
No, it's okay. The tractor's going straight, planter's rolling, so we're in good shape. Well, thanks for calling.
You bet. Mark Kerber in Livingston County. You can find his and the other reports in each week's edition of Farm Week. All right, this is RFD Today on a Monday, and later in the program we'll have Dale Dirkholz in studio. But right now we will go back to a piece that we did on Friday on our news show, RFD Profit Watch. A lot of that will still hold up for today, so we'll do an encore presentation of Friday's interview. Is Kurt Struber. Kurt is Risk Manager and Cash Grain Consultant for Advanced Trading. How are you, sir?
Hey, good afternoon, DeLoss. I'm doing well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for doing this. And so even in a weather market, and even as, it's nice to see field work, but it's still the 7th of June, but you still need to feed the bull from time to time, don't you?
That's right. It's difficult to go up every day. And, we've had a lot of unknowns developing in this marketplace, certainly would have had a lot of uncertainty regarding crop progress leading into the week, and still do today. What we haven't seen this week that we had in some of the previous weeks to help drive the bullishness was a lot of what we call non-commercial buying, or the investment funds that can come in and make bigger intraday moves in the marketplace. That buying that was largely present the previous 2 weeks was not as active this week, and that's a big part of what didn't keep driving us higher.
So one of those things that as the market gets higher, you have fewer people chasing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm saying that to some extent.
Yeah.
And going back here 3 or 4 weeks ago, the non-commercial grain position in corn was at a record short level, and a lot of that was largely covered in during that time frame. It doesn't mean those funds couldn't continue to buy and build a large net long position, but it looked like they kind of got close to net even, may have even resold some things to get back to a slight short position. And yes, without that additional momentum, there wasn't enough commercial buying to keep propelling us higher.
So last week, December corn gained 24. This week we lost 10. November beans gained 48.5, and then this week they lost 21 3/4. So that's not exactly 50%, but is that the kind of retracement talk? I mean, so to see something like that shouldn't be too much of a surprise, I guess?
Just week on week, that would certainly make some sense to see that kind of a setback. And, we generally tend not to have a big flat price position in our office. We tend to take more of a risk management approach. But from a flat price perspective, the next question then would be, have we retraced enough just in terms of weekly changes, or do we need to technically, retrace down to more of the recent lows in the markets, which would mean quite a bit lower before we had a 50% level there. I tend to think the fundamentals will end up having a bigger impact because of being in the heart of a weather market here. But technically, that would certainly be the question.
Do you think there's a floor in place right now? Is 4.30 or 4.25, or are there floors like for December corn in place right now?
I'm always hesitant to say that because we certainly have the odds kind of stacked against raising, a trendline yield, or certainly against another record type yield. But it's not impossible to get that kind of a situation done, and we do have some pretty negative demand factors going on, particularly on the corn and the soybean markets. And so those demand factors make some of the rationing easier to get done that it looks like we will need to do, given the challenges to the supply side of the equation.
And then for soybeans, I talked a lot of corn this week. I haven't talked as much soybeans this week, but November soybeans $8.83, but last week we actually got to the $9 level. But as our attention, especially as we go later in June, continues to move toward soybean planting, but at the same time, my goodness, there are so many acres that still need to be put in the ground in so many states.
Correct. Large number of acres of corn, and certainly a larger number yet on the soybean side. And specific to soybeans, I think the biggest question on the acreage end is, of the corn that doesn't end up getting planted from the original 90 plus million acre intention, 92 million plus acre intentions on corn, what share of that does switch over to soybeans versus becoming a true prevent plant type scenario. Most analysts have been a little reluctant to want to bump up their soybean acreage too significantly, thinking that the corn that doesn't get planted is more likely to end up in a prevent plant scenario than a crop switch.
Well, I had a swallow there. Almost had a little choke moment there. Now, thinking ahead, so Tuesday we have USDA report. The last one had the corn number at 176 bushels an acre. I don't know how in the world you can even, you have to have a number. I don't know how much you can change the number or what you would base changing the number on. So I'm sure there'll be some curiosity of, what numbers are actually plugged in come Tuesday.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges to the analyst community during the growing season is, do they release a prediction of what the USDA is going to say, or do they release their own prediction of what they think the actual numbers are, so to speak? So, am I, as an analyst, am I saying this is my best estimate today, or am I saying here's what I think the USDA is going to say? And the USDA, for the June report, historically doesn't like to make a lot of big changes. It's not unprecedented that they would make some changes, but historically they still stick with the trendline yield, which would be the 176, and they still stick with the initial acreage intentions number, which would be 92.8 million planted acres on corn. I don't think any analyst anywhere wants to use those same kind of numbers in their own balance sheet. So it becomes a question of the USDA, do they make an acreage adjustment today or this week in their report to reflect the late planting, or do they wait until the June 27th actual plantings report? So a survey of analysts as a prediction relative to the USDA has predicted that they will release a 172 bushel per acre yield, so it would be down 4.
Kurt Struber at Advanced Trading, we talked to him Friday. A lot of that is still holding up. Just what will the yields be, and be harder to guess what will the acres be. And I mean, it doesn't matter in June because that's what's going into the balance sheet, and that's what we're trading off of. But at the same time, how much, certainly there will be room for adjustments as the year goes on. Stay tuned. It's RFD Today.
Farm Week, the early word. Here's to Loss Junkie.
It's no wonder farmers have struggled to plant crops this season. Average Illinois precipitation in May totaled nearly 8.5 inches, almost 4 inches more than normal. Turn to Farm Week to learn more about the third wettest May on record. Sonia Harper, the new chair of the Illinois House Agriculture and Conservation Committee, increased her agricultural knowledge recently during a visit with her adopted Christian County Farm Bureau farmers. Learn more about the Chicago legislator and her desire to stay connected with Illinois farmers in the latest edition of Farm Week.
No other Farm Weekly in Illinois has as many people on the ground in Illinois covering Illinois agriculture for you with the depth on key issues to help keep you profitable. And don't forget, you can get daily or even more frequent updates online anytime at farmweeknow.com.
Are you preparing for planting season? We don't mean to be a pest, but here's a few things you need to know before you grow. The Illinois Department of Agriculture now requires special local needs labels, including new restrictions for the use of herbicide dicamba on top of soybeans in Illinois for the 2019 growing season. Did you know these additional restrictions go beyond federally approved labels? Remember, the label is the law. To find out more about these Illinois-specific labels, visit ilfb.org/label-aware.
We know you want the best for your family. We do too. That's why Illinois farmers continually look for new ways to help. We're working with Mother Nature to preserve water, protect land, and provide food. From our fields to your table, we want what's best for all of us and for future generations to come. Learn more about conservation efforts at ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Welcome back to RFD Profit Watch. I'm Loss Junkie. Joining us over the phone, Alan Motu is the Director of Meteorology at QT Information Systems. He's up in Chicago. And this was going back to some tweets on Sunday. I feel like if farmers hear active weather pattern again, they're going to strangle somebody. But here we are. It looks like another one, at least for a while, in the Midwest.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, it's tough to put it out there, but I call it like I see it, and we just don't see any significant relief this week, next week, and in fact, new long-range modeling came out this weekend. It's the NMME that a lot of forecasters look at. It's the North American output that has multi-model input. And it says that we are in for a summer that we haven't seen since possibly 1993. So the wet pattern continues, but first things first, we're looking at the wetness for the week and next 2 weeks. But this long-range pattern says July could actually even be wetter than the past 2 months, with widespread above normal precipitation all the way from the Rockies and even including the northern plains all the way down to Florida and out into New England. That's the new NMME for July, right across the Corn Belt, almost the entire Corn Belt covered with above normal precipitation.
Where's it all coming from?
Well, you need the source. You need the Gulf of Mexico to provide it. Also, there is some theory out there that wet begets wet because you wet the soils, and we certainly have that. And then when you warm it up, you bring more evaporation and bring the moisture up into the air, and you precipitate it out possibly, and that could be the pattern. But that also means that we potentially will be cooler than normal over those wet soils for the summer. So that is a pattern that is also shown by the long-range modeling. I like to look at long-range modeling. I can't outguess the models, and a few meteorologists can, but right now the pattern is looking also cooler than normal, not only in the near term here, the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14, but cooler than normal for July, August, and September. And this year we're going to have to look into September because of such late crops and uneven conditions.
So none of that sounds any good at all, essentially.
Well, I suppose the good side of it is that some have gotten it in of late, and some are looking okay because we're not lacking the moisture. We've only had, I believe, 2% of the nation in drought. We just had drying across the southeast states, so they were struggling with dry conditions. So wetness there, which is included in the longer range outlook, would be favorable. And, of course, the Gulf states, they've moved ahead with corn, and I've heard some other conditions are pretty good across Texas and the South. But, yes, I suppose if you look out into the Corn Belt for the year, it is depressing in many ways, sorry to say.
Now, last week, it seemed like we weren't going to get a window, but yet we got a window. So I guess one question would be, what is something that could change this kind of outlook? Is it a jet stream thing? Is it a trough somewhere? What could change what this outlook has been showing, at least so far?
Well, the westerlies have been pretty strong, and we just went through a short period of time where we had a cutoff system that was south, and that kind of shut off a full force of moisture from the Gulf, and also it kept the pattern very wet across the south. So the Corn Belt really in this past week has had some holes, some spots that were relatively dry, but we are changing that as this system now has cleared the area. It's clearing the East Coast. By Tuesday, it's going to be off the East Coast, and we're going to have drying for Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even parts of the Southeast once again. But we have this now westerly flow where we open up the Gulf of Mexico periodically. The ridging shows a little bit in the east. We get that return flow, and we add more moisture to the mix than we've had up north in the past week's period. So it just was a short window we went through. I think, though, that we closed that, and the question mark is who gets the heaviest for the week ahead. Right now, modeling is saying Tuesday we have to look back into an area that has already been flooded this season, into southern Minnesota, where we could focus some very heavy precipitation this week, as well as northwest Iowa. And over the weekend, the front that has dropped into parts of the northern plains and central plains has left some fairly large totals, a little more than expected. And that has diminished today, but that will refire for early this week, as I say, and particularly midweek. So we're opening up the Gulf again. We cleared that southern system that was kind of blocking any of the full-fledged moisture coming back into the Midwest. And now we have the westerlies that are going to be dramatic across the north. That can bring severe weather when you have strong winds aloft. When I say westerlies, it's relatively strong for this time of year to be over the region indicated. Certainly, it looks like that could be the pattern with really no doldrums, as you've always heard, summer doldrums. I don't think we're going to have that this year. It's going to be active.
Alan Mochu, hear the full conversation later today on RFD Profit Watch.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
The Illinois economy runs on our homegrown agricultural products. Our dairy, beef, pork, corn, and soybeans grow the agricultural industry by nearly $20 billion each year. But we don't just grow Illinois, we grow North America. Canada and Mexico account for over $45 billion in U.S. agricultural exports, and they support more than 1 million American jobs. Exports to Canada and Mexico matter to everyone in the agriculture and food industries.
A message from Illinois farmers and their checkoff programs.
What's the excitement about buying a brand new car when you pay full price for it? County Farm Bureau members have a reason to be excited. A Farm Bureau membership gives you 2 car purchase discounts. When members buy a new Ford vehicle, they receive $500 off their purchase. And with the purchase of a qualifying Lincoln vehicle, they receive $750 off. Everyone loves a good deal, and the money saved is worth the price of our annual membership. This is just one of our 300,000 plus discounts that are always changing to fit our members' needs. Not a Farm Bureau member? Visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local County Farm Bureau for your discount code number.
Farm, family, food. Those 3 words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm. For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm, family, food. The heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. I'm Loss Junkie. Brenda Matherly is in studio, Illinois Farm Bureau's Assistant Director of Local Government. How are you?
Good. Good morning.
Well, when we bring in Brenda, and I say this before, you're such a delightful person, but the subjects that we get to talk about with you are not always the best one. In this case, and you could find this in LINK, Local Information News and Know-How, which is sent to county farm bureaus, certainly.
It is. Yep. It's an electronic newsletter, so it's easily distributed if anybody's interested in it.
And the topic, or one of the topics in this recent link, is 2020 certified values. What's a certified value? What does that mean?
For certified values for our farmers means what is going to be the taxable value of the property that they own tied to farmland, particularly farm soils.
Okay, so different soil types, that means different values.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
The certified values consider the quality of soil that is being farmed when assigning a value to it. Obviously, a higher productive soil would be assessed higher than the lower productive soils.
Right. So people in southern Illinois traditionally are taxed differently than, say, central and northern Illinois.
They're certainly assessed differently. Farmers in the southern part of the state have the poorer quality soils. They're farming the poorer quality soils. We in the central part of the state are sitting in God's country with the good black dirt. And same with the northern part of the state. You'll see those higher quality soils.
So what is the assessment year? This is for the 2020 assessment year. Is that January to December, or is that a different year?
In the assessment process, there is some lag time in it. I think what's important to note is we're looking at assessments for 2020 that will impact taxes you pay in 2021.
Okay.
So the taxes we'll pay, and probably a lot of us are writing checks for as we speak, this year are based on values from the 2018 assessments.
All right. So you pay every year.
You pay every year.
But the
no way around that.
But there are but the assessment process goes every 2 years.
Yes, it's typically a 2-year process.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's good. If you're going to raise it 10% at a time, at least it's not every year.
Well, I'm afraid you're going to see that every year, at least for the near future. You'll see that the application of a 10%, driving those certified values every year for a number of years yet.
So this is a conversation that we have had before, and sounds like we're going to have again. So why 10%? Why and it just seems to be not necessarily a rubber stamp, but it seems to be pretty close to automatic at this point.
It's a fair prediction to assume that we are going to see, and when I say 10% increase, I have to change the dialogue a little bit from what we knew prior to 2015. Our farmers were used to a 10% increase on each soil that they farmed. Starting in 2015, there was a legislative change that changed how that 10% is applied. From that point forward, the 10% is applied to a PI soil 111, which is a median quality soil in Illinois, and then that value of the 10% increase stretches across the state from high to low soils.
But if I remember right, we're playing catch up still.
Right.
I mean, it's because this didn't move for a long time.
That is correct. And that kind of stifling of the values is a result of that previous 10% limit that we were all used to. All of that kind of supports a formula that's in place that helps determine productivity. So obviously the soils that have a higher productivity potential are assessed higher than those that are assessed lower. However, that formula was limited for, 20 or 30 years by a 10% change. And as a result, it, as you said, it kind of shut down the increases in effect, especially on those poorer soils. So this legislative change is helping us catch up. And I say catch up. It's helping the certified values to be more reflective of the actual production potential of the soil. Because right now there's still quite a bit of shelter in the values tied to that 10% limit.
Oh, so I was going to say, so a certified value, so the 2020 certified values, is that then an accurate assessment of the land's productivity?
No. I think it's fair to say that it is that certified value is certainly more reflective of an administrative limit, a 10% limit. The actual reflection of the values is tied to a formula that shows up in equalized assessed value. And if our farmers were to look at that, even then I think they would say, well, that doesn't seem reflective of what I'm doing today with today's farm economy. But it's important to note that when we look at that formula, there's probably about a 5 to 7 year lag time behind the current assessments.
Wow.
So never do the assessments truly reflect the current market. And that allows for those shifts in the farm economy. It allows for some budgeting opportunities, both for taxing districts and for farmers.
So this is where it really comes in, because this will then widen year upon year. So in some cases, we're talking about certified values of fewer than $200 per
Correct,
acre.
Right.
So 10% is a $15 change, basically.
So what we'll see for the 2020, if we want to convert that 10% into actual dollar increase, and I think that makes it more understandable, from 2019 to 2020 certified values, all soils increased in assessed value by $32.
Oh, okay.
So everything increased by $32. That brought the certified value of a PI 111 to $352. So for next year, assessment year 2021, we know that with pretty safe prediction that all soils will increase $35.21.
Another 10%.
Yes.
Hang on, hold that thought. Brendan Matherly, Illinois Farm Bureau.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Spring is here and things are buzzing. Farmers and pollinators are working together to help feed us. In fact, 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat exists because of bees, butterflies, birds, bats, and other insects. Pollinators are important to our food system and the ecosystem overall. That's why farmers and those in the agricultural industry are working together to protect pollinators through education, research, and conservation efforts. Visit ilagformonarchs.org to join the buzz. That's ilagformonarchs.org.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Loss Junkie, and we have had a little bit of a turnaround since the open. Corn futures are coming back toward unchanged. Soybeans, which started a couple cents lower, are now 5 to 6 cents higher. July corn down a half, 4.15 1/4. September down 3/4, 4.23 1/2. December down a half, 4.33 1/4. July soybeans up 6, 8.62 1/4. August up 5 3/4, 8.68 3/4. November up 6, 8.89. And July wheat down 2 3/4, $5 1 3/4. And September down 3 3/4, $5 5 3/4. July hogs though up $1.06 at 184.95, and August cattle up 197, 152.27.
Let's take a second to imagine a lineup of the different types of real estate professionals there are to choose from. Some are national, others mostly sell homes. But when you're in the market to buy or sell large acreage recreational or farm property, well, that's when you want to call the specialists. Now, who would you trust to sell your land? Buyafarm.com, specializing in rural real estate, sales, and auctions. Call 800-443-1998.
All right, welcome back. This is RFD Today on a Monday. I'm Loss Junkie. Brendan Matherly is in, Illinois Farm Bureau's Assistant Director of Local Government, talking about 2020 certified values, which then will be used to calculate farmland taxes payable in 2021. So, and these values, I mean, we're talking about a per acre basis then. So if we have, 500 to 1,000, whatever acres, we just multiply and we have an understanding of what we'll be paying on taxes.
Yes, if you apply the assessed value, the certified value, tied to the quality of soils that you farm, you in order to determine what you pay in taxes, you would just have to take that assessed value times whatever your tax rate is, your aggregate tax rate is on that land.
And that's my property tax?
And that will be your property tax.
Okay. I was just making sure that certified values is property taxes, and there aren't two different categories.
And that's easy. I mentioned earlier that the increase we're seeing for the 2020 assessed value is an increase of $32 for all soils. And I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, my taxes are going up $32 an acre. But in fact, you would have to take that increase times your tax rate. So if you had a 7.5% tax rate or a 7% tax rate, you would take that $32 increase times that tax rate, and you'd have about a $2.25 increase in actual taxes per acre.
So the certified value, you are taxed on the certified value.
Right. That represents the taxable value of the property you own.
Because depending on soil type, some of these soils are worth more than $700 an acre. You're not taxed $700 an acre. You're taxed whatever the percentage is.
Right, whatever the tax rate. And a lot of that is driven by your school district.
Yeah.
Not picking on school districts, but as we know, they rely really heavily on local property taxes as a revenue source. So your school district will in part drive your property taxes.
Okay. So does that mean another road show for you?
It does. It does. I think, as a matter of fact, important to note that with these certified values being released, your county assessor will be holding the county farmland review committee meetings. So they'll be scheduling that with their farmland review committee and talking about these values and application locally. Those are open to the public. So if you see that in the paper, feel free to attend if you have questions regarding your property in your county.
Always good to remember that the assessor is not the one who...
Right.
This table, that you have a statewide table, and it's not all the assessors collaborating to do this.
That's right.
They're just executing their part of the job.
A good degree of this, the values tied to your soil is a state process, state statute, certainly administered by the Illinois Department of Revenue, and very literally emailed out to the supervisor of assessments in your county for them to apply to the soils that are prevalent in the county.
Gotcha. So if you're at a county farm bureau, or if you're a farm bureau member and you would like for Brenda to come to your county, then just shoot her contact your county office and
talk to your county farm bureau manager, and we are happy to do that. And certainly at that time we can provide much more information on this topic.
Right. This is one of those things where, hey, it's not great information, but don't tell me what I want to hear. Let's be realistic, and this is what you need to be
being
expecting.
Informed will, I think, will help a lot with the process as we go forward over the next 5 to 7 years.
Right. Thank you very much, Brenda. Appreciate it. Brenda Matherly will do a little chair switch here. Brenda is Assistant Director of Local Government at Illinois Farm Bureau. You can find the information in LINK, Local Information News and Know-How, which is electronically distributed.
I'd rather talk to her than me.
Well, I'd rather talk to her than you too, as well. But
she's younger and she's younger and nicer looking.
Well, Brenda has great information there, and you could have this also. Contact your county manager and ask for information about the LINK and 2020 certified values. Dale Dirkholz is in now, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor, our final Monday conversation in this kind of venue. How about that?
Well, it's the final conversation at this stage of my life.
We'll talk again.
It doesn't mean I'm going to go away. And
you control whether or not you answer the phone, though, at this point, a lot more.
Yeah, I do that already.
Yeah, I'll bet so. So Dale retiring on Friday and can still be pestered in a number of different ways, including on social media.
You know, what I'm really doing is walking away from the day-to-day grind as far as the markets are concerned. I've got a Twitter site, Grain Cycles. I'm going to start up a blog on WordPress, probably with the same name the last I looked. Haven't had time to set it up. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
And you know, so I'm just going to take commodities at a little bit more relaxed pace. Number one, won't be into the day-to-day grind. Number two, get a look at some things I really want to look at, that I don't get chance to do it when you have to produce, on a day-to-day basis.
Right. You still speak. You still still do the rubber chicken dinners and stuff like that. Do the circuit if you want to.
Rubber chickens.
You run the rubber chicken circuit.
They're very tasty, They're kind of chewy.
Let me ask you about this. So, estimates for June corn soy production. So tomorrow we're going to get a report. And the June report is probably about other commodities other than corn and soybeans that it takes a look at.
The only thing we really have in June is a winter wheat production report as far as that's concerned. Otherwise, it's just the typical supply-demand. But, everybody looking at this S&D is really trying to figure out what the USDA is going to say as far as production. Production numbers for corn and beans, and trying to figure out what the USDA is a wild-ass guess.
Well, yeah, it's because you typically wouldn't have any reason to change this in June.
Well, typically at this point from the USDA, they're kind of bound up by using the acreage numbers from the March intentions report, which we know at this point are out the window. In a big way. And the other thing that they do in the production number itself, they tend to apply, their trend yields, which you really question, how valid those are. Beans may hold up better than corn looking forward at this point. So trying to figure out, the USDA forecast here, it's nigh on impossible because we don't have much history of this.
USDA would be prudent to lower it to some degree, but it's not like you go from 176 to 160, something like that.
I don't remember the acreage changes, in fact, from back in 1993, and the only year really in modern history that's comparable. But back then they went from, I want to say, 123 bushel yield they'd used on their May forecast to trend yield down to 118, and they held that 118 through both June and July.
And, two questions in here. So how do you move the yield, and then how many acres do you base that on? Because now we're really getting into the balance sheet if we're doing the math like that.
And adding into the difficulty at this point in time, too, is, a lot of people out there looking at the weather, looking at the planting progress. They're making some real wild prognostications. I've seen some corn production numbers that get down under 12 billion bushel already, and I'm going, really? That's possible.
It's possible.
But we've got a whole growing season to get through here yet. We don't know anything about the crop. We don't even have a clue on acres about the crop. So trying to make an extremely low number is difficult. And the other thing along with that...
We'll do the other thing when we come back from this break.
USDA tends to be conservative.
Oh, yes. That certainly is a thing as well. Dale Durkos, more to come. RFD Today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Loss Junkie. Last week in Greenville, feeder steers and heifers were $6 to $8 lower. Fed cattle in Greenville and Fairview last week were $1 to $3 lower. Greenville 6-weight feeder steers 105 to 1 1/4, 7 weights 100 to 120. On the heifers, 5 weights 120 to 135, 6 weights from 90 to 120. On the fed cattle market, they had a top of 118, a couple of high-yielding steers and heifers to 120, some prime steers hit a top of 123, certainly in the June swoon in the cattle market. Illinois direct market for hogs Friday was steady with a top of 54. Sow market steady with earlier in the week, 40 for a top for lightweights, 44 for a top on heavyweights. The Loss Junkie, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. I'm the Loss Junkie.
For my last appearance, you would think he would play.
Oh, Tower of Power?
Tower of Power.
Yeah, we've been all kinds of messed up today. We had we were just shifting chairs.
Just today?
Well, today in particular, we've been running around. But yes, what is hit by Tower of Power? We'll play that at some point this week in your honor. So, a couple of questions. Well, and then you think about, just how hard this gets.
Back to where we were. We've got to remember, because we cut off quickly, the USDA, at this particular point in the growing season, is going to have a conservative stance as far as whatever the changes they make, because acreage, we really don't have a clue, because we still got probably 20% of the corn to plant yet. Beans, half the crop to plant yet. So you don't really have a clue as to how many acres are ultimately going to get seeded. So the USDA is going to have the mindset, I don't want to go too far.
Right.
I would rather move to that direction.
Yeah.
They're going to do the same thing on yield as well.
And so those that are predicting what USDA will say, like you predicted 173. So, that's a modest. So if they come out with a 173, then no need to, flip your lid because
it depends on where the trade, what the trade was. They were a little bit different than that. And the bottom line is going to be, because there's always, when you look at an S&D, a lot of moving parts. It's not only the production numbers. We've got to look at what will they do with demand at this point in time. Will there be any changes there? But as far as yield is concerned, albeit not to the problem we had this year, 2009 was a wet, slow spring. Not nearly as bad as this one, but it was a wet, slow spring. And we ended up with a new record corn yield.
Yeah. Leroy Getz, our farm crop watcher in Savannah, said 2.2 inches of rainfall, and he said places to the east of him got 5.
Mm-hmm.
And those that got 5, at that point, were done with corn planting, for the year. So
with the calendar today at June 10, one of the things I've always used in terms of crop insurance itself and where do farmers stop planting a crop, that final day for full insurance coverage was, for most of the state anyway, the 31st of May. Basically, they'll go 5 to 10 days beyond that. And here we are 10 days beyond. Now there'll be a tendency of not, maybe some ways they decide to make the shift and go back to beans and go away from corn, but at least they will probably gear up to stop planting corn, especially weekend rains. And I know, like here in central Illinois, we got rains coming tomorrow. So you do that, and then you're at the end of the week. So you're out to the 15th of June. It's kind of like it's just getting too late.
All right. So if I'm holding last year's corn at this point, because we've seen the last few days the bull market still needs to be fed, and that could come tomorrow with USDA's report. Who knows? But with a lot of planting progress for some over the past week, we need some new news if we're gonna.
I'm reluctant to sell the break. I'll say that. Yeah. But I also have to acknowledge that this thing can wind down and go lower yet. We can take another 20, maybe 30 cents out of the market. So if I get bumps and rallies, I'll pare it down, understanding that it may be mid-July or even on into August before I have the next good selling opportunity. So I've always got to gauge old crop sales at this point with that time parameter and the gun against my head that I want to have this price going forward at this point. So with that, I'm really thinking about, if I get a little bit of a bounce and I still got a good price, old crop, let's pare it down because I got time to worry about.
By the way, I do not have a gun to Dale's head at the moment. But if it's going to be hard to predict corn acres, how in the world are we going to predict soybean acres, which is so far behind?
Same story. It's just really an unknown. I go back to 93. If anybody out there and they want to look back at a piece of history, I think it's important. In the August 93 USDA crop report, they did a special survey that year, and the results of that are in a special section in the back of the August 93 report. They ended up found that 2.8 million acres never got planted, and 5 million acres got planted and flooded out. And basically they're counting whole fields. They weren't even counting partial fields and ponds and stuff like that. We're talking about whole fields. There's a whole piece on that back there, and it's always one of those reports that you keep in mind. And I would say this year's August report, it's always one of those that you will have a great focus on. Because by the time they put out the August report, we should be able to have, and I think by the middle of July, we should be able to have some reasonably good acreage numbers out of the satellite companies on what corn and soybean plantings might have been this year. Because looking at a field, you got a pretty unique infrared signature off of the different crops, and they've actually done a pretty good job of that over the years.
Nice feature on you. But I mean, it's a substantial feature. I haven't read it yet, but you almost got a full page in Farm Week this week.
It's great material to take a picture out and put it in your barn to keep the rats away, or you can put it in the middle of dartboard and take out your frustrations with the planting season, whatever the case may be.
Bottom of the bird cage, something like that. Well, keep this in mind, Dale. As you're striving to find the right road, there's one thing you should know: what's hip today might become passé.
That's true.
How about that?
That's true.
That's from the song. That's from
out
the
of
song.
Tower of Power. What is hip?
All right. Well, congratulations. I guess we'll talk to Joe Camp next week or something like that, I suppose. But
Joe or Carl?
Joe or Carl. That's right. Yeah, Carl. Tell me Carl's last name.
Carl Setzer.
I was going to say Setzer. Yes, Carl Setzer. And he's a veteran, too, and we'll be hearing more from him as we go along. Dale Dirkholz for one more week, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor. I'm DeLoss Yalke saying watch your ends. Rita will be in studio tomorrow.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.